I'm going to demonstrate an example of another type of cup, a face cup. I really like putting faces on things. It's really fun, gives them personality, and you can really balance the sculptural and functional aspects of something like this and have it really strong and expressive and also very functional. So I want to show you how you can go about doing that. The first thing you want to do is plan out your format. The personality of the cup should match the personality of the face. Like if you had a really saggy, sad, I need some coffee kind of face, you would probably want it more bottom heavy, like it was sinking into the table. Or maybe you want a more happy, perky kind of cup. Maybe that should flare out more and be narrower at the bottom and feel kind of lighter. I'm going to go for sort of a more smiley look. And then think about, is it realistic? Is it kind of cartoony? How do caricature artists play around with those types of things? For instance, in this planter that I made, it's not glazed yet, but you can see it's just really wild and chunky. That was kind of the style and personality of it. And I emphasize the mouth. I like that kind of cartoonish mouth going on there. Some things to keep in mind, when someone smiles, their cheeks will kind of push up on their eyelids and bring the eyes up, so the eyes should smile as well. Look at the anatomy of the face in different positions, like the expression that you want to make, and then take a picture of yourself or someone else making that expression and use that as your example. It's always, always, always good to have reference material. I use reference material for everything, even things that I'm really familiar with. I always look at references to help me understand what I want to do. And then how does the face fit on that cup? Here, that bottom lip is just resting on the table, and that's sort of a playful feature. It can be more sculptural, like this pig. These ears kind of make it less functional and practical, but it's a fun composition. And then this little curly tail becomes the handle. Then here's a pretty wild one, this chicken. Here, it's a combination of underglaze and then an iron oxide stain. So I stained it first with the iron oxide, and then I painted red underglaze, white underglaze, yellow underglaze. So here I have a cylinder cup that I made. It's still a little rough, but it's just like the cylinder cup from the other example video. So if you want to get to this stage, look at, the round cup, the cylinder cup, and see, how to get to the stage where you have a cup to work on. The top is still a bit rough here. The walls could be a little thinner. Be sure to get those walls down to, a 1/4 inch thin or even thinner. And make sure that top lip looks nice. This top lip is a little funky. So one thing I can do to clean up that lip is this little trick. I can hold my needle tool on my wooden modeling tool and then just rotate. Boom, lined up real nice. So I can cut right along there to get that level. Now that I've marked it, I'll go ahead and cut it. Now I'll pinch that, thin it out, and remember, always make your lip really nice, because that lip, it talks about the cup. If that lip is thick and sloppy, it makes the whole rest of the form look thick and sloppy. So I'm just going to initially clean it up a bit, and then once I get to the end, I'll clean it up some more, because I know in the process of making this face on the cup, I'm probably going to beat up that lip quite a bit. Thinking of the angle of view, because the cup slants outward, it makes it so that, when you're looking at it from above, you don't see the face as well. So maybe I want to give it a little bit of tilt just for personality, even though I got it all nice and even. And So the nose is going to be about there. I want it to have kind of a big mouth on it, and probably put some teeth in there. Smiles go up a little bit, but they're mostly sort of straight. But I'll bring it up at the edges, and that'll make it kind of more animated. So the nose is going to be here, so I'll score where that's going to go. Just mark out where those eyes are going to be. Don't want to make them all the way up on that lip because I don't want them to interfere with the lip. It'll be sort of loosely based on my face, just kind of playful. And I'm going to add the nose because everything kind of revolves around the nose. Add a little bit of slip on there. Score this chunk of clay. Get a little slip on that. And stick it on there. Push that in. And generally the face is going to come out right under the nose. So you can see I'm going to reach in here and really push down to bring that out. So the cup is soft leather hard. I built it 4 hours ago and I let it sit out for a while. And then the upper lip is going to be like right here. So I'll start to make a little bit of an upper lip. Very often people want to add the lip, like they want to add that upper lip as just like a big chunky thing there. And you know, I feel like that doesn't look as good. A lip is going to create sort of a V shape. It's going to lean out this way and then it's going to kind of come back that way. It's going to create that angle. It doesn't come down and stick out. It's more of a change of direction. And it's going to be kind of like at that angle. I can use my wooden modeling tool here to get some nose shape and add a little clay. If it's just a teeny bit of clay and it's the clay you're adding it to is still pretty moist, you can just kind of stick it on there. Otherwise, it's really important to score and slip all your connections. Like when I stuck the nose on, that was a much larger connection. So I really needed to score and slip that. And then it's going to be the center of the nose. The nose underneath is going to kind of come down a little bit here. And then the eyes are going to be right about here. And the wooden modeling tool is nice for creating that eye shape. You could actually add clay for the eyeball, but this works well to just kind of use the edge of your tool to press in there and create that volume. Plus I'm not adding a whole lot of extra weight. You could decide to make your eyes really intentionally uneven, like more comical and expressive that way. This is going to be sort of a cartoonish rendition, so eyes don't need to be totally symmetrical. But, you know, we'll measure, check it out. How far is that? See, this one looks a little lower. And work that upper lip a little bit more. And maybe there's like a little bit of volume down here. Add a little bit of clay right there. So I'll keep a little bit of water and a little bit of slip handy for attaching things. Also a spray bottle is good to have. The lip kind of comes down in the middle, and then there's that little indentation right here. This is the Philippe Farreau 7-inch eye modeling tool that I recommend. This is really great for detail work. Get some nostrils going there. Don't want to spend too much time in one area, so don't want to completely develop that nose yet. And if I wanted this mouth to be closed, I could just make a little coil here. I want to have some teeth in there, so I'm gonna push the clay out a little bit here, and then I'm gonna think about where that bottom lip is gonna be, and then the teeth are gonna kind of curve back, and then there's gonna be a little bit of a separation right there. So then that bottom lip is gonna be more like right there. But you know what? I like that big goofy grin. Let's go even bigger. Yes, I think I'll do it more like that. And then, so I'll need a bigger piece of clay for that bottom lip. Roll this coil in my hands. Something like that. So I'll score. I can use my needle tool. Maybe you have a scoring tool or a fork will work. I like this one because it's more precise. Score all through there. And I like to use a brush to moisten things because you can add slip to that surface, but the best thing to do is create slip on the surface of the thing that you're attaching to create that slip on the surface of the form that you're attaching to, so that slip is really kind of integrated into the form. Before I add that lip, I'll develop my teeth. So here I have a popsicle stick, and it's cut and sanded to create that nice edge. And this can create some really nice soft lines. So there's going to be a divide in the middle of the teeth, and the teeth are going to curve away from the lips as they kind of go back into the head. So I'm going to push that inward a little bit. Same thing on this side. And then this is going to go up. These bottom teeth are going to tuck behind the top teeth. So here's the top teeth. There's going to be a separation dead center, and then be another tooth right about here. Right about here. Make another tooth there. And you want these separations, see how that's kind of like a hard line right there? You want it to be more of a soft line, so you can use your tool and kind of soften that line a little bit. And then do the bottom teeth. Same thing, be kind of a separation in the middle, soft lines. You could even do like a little bit of a gum line up here if you want to. Okay, that's probably good. And then now let's see, how's that lip gonna be? Yeah, that's gonna work, but it still sticks out a little bit too much. So I'll take my fettling knife and just cut it down a little bit, especially right here. I want it to kind of taper at the edges, so take some of that off, and I'll score that. And then I'll add a little water, kind of reactivate this a little bit. See, I don't even need slip if I use water on here and kind of activate that clay. Then I'll stick my lip on there and then smooth it in. Maybe a little too much clay here. I can use my trimming tool. Take off a little bit of that clay there. That good smile curving up here. I'm laying this cup on the side, so I need to be careful not to mess up that edge. Try not to beat up the cup form too much as I work. There's often going to be a line that kind of comes off of the nose and will tuck under the cheekbone and wrap around this back edge. But this eye is kind of encroaching on that area, so we got to sort of navigate that. I'm going to do the bottom eyelids, and then the cheeks are going to kind of sit over those eyelids. So I can actually use a little bit of clay to create the eyelids. So I want these to be symmetrical, so I'll create a couple tiny little eyelids, moisten my fingers, just dip them in the water. When you smile, your cheeks are gonna push up on your eyelids and kind of push them up the eye. So the bottom eyelids are gonna be a little high. Score this little tiny thing, get a little bit of water on there. Because that smile, it looks real creepy right now without the bottom eyelids coming up. So you want it to look like a genuine smile. Don't trust anybody who smiles without their eyelids coming up. It's not a real smile. And this wooden modeling tool works well to create that little contour there. So I will smush this on, bring that eyelid up a bit. And for the top eyelid, I could add some clay, but I think I can get away with just tucking that clay down a little bit, create a little groove. Always soft lines, nice soft lines. Work on this nose a little bit more. So now that we have the bottom eyelids, we can add some cheeks, right around here. I'll moisten that, dip my brush in some water, add a little water there. Score this. Score that little piece of clay. A little water on there. Dip my, and the cheek is gonna kind of smooth up into this, and this line is gonna go up into the nose there. It's all sort of part of the cheek. So now this line kind of curves around, and then it like dips down underneath that cheek. Always working on both sides at the same time so that it is symmetrical. And then I'll fill in a little bit of that transition into the nose. Smooth that out a little bit, wet my finger, smooth it out a little bit. Now I can create a bit of a pupil and iris. I have this tool here. You can also use a dull pencil. A dull pencil will work really well for this. And I'm going to make my pupils, and I'll start kind of small. And I'm going to make them like in a little bit and towards the top of the eyeball. So if I make it small, I can kind of adjust, and it looks like this one's a little high. So I'll bring this one up to sort of match it. The eyes aren't totally even, but it's a crazy face cup, so who cares? I guess I could bring this eyelid down a little bit here. When you add those pupils, it can really kind of show you how symmetrical or not symmetrical your eyes are. Moisten the tool a little bit so it moves on the clay smoothly. So I got my pupils, and now I can create a little bit of iris. You could use your wooden modeling tool. Might be hard to get in there. I'm going to use my Philippe Farreau 7-inch eye modeling tool. You can see that listed in the materials list, and that iris just kind of echoes the pupil, and then we're just about there. Maybe you want to add a handle at this point. You can see why I didn't add the handle at first, because it would probably get beat up as I'm moving this cup around and shaping it. I can spend some more time cleaning up the lip. So I'm pretty happy with where the cup's at so far. This face has a lot of personality. It's kind of like perky, kind of mischievous, and I think I want the gesture of the cup to match the expression of the face a little bit more. Usually it's better to shape the cup before you put the face on, but I'm going to do a little trick here, and I want to create like a little bit of curve to the back of the cup. I want to bring the cup in, make it like a little narrower, and especially on the top, I'm going to cut a dart out of it, and I want that to be directly back from the nose, so right about there. Have it kind of open up and then come in. So almost like it's a fabric design. I can tailor it. I can have a dart in there that's going to change the shape a bit. So I drew it on there.
measure twice, cut once, right? It's hard to go back on that cut, but I'm feeling pretty confident about it. I'm going to cut right here. Remove that, and then I'll just take a look here and see how it kind of curved in. Maybe a little more needs to come off of the bottom just to kind of enhance that personality a little bit. This also helps to show me how thick my cup is here, and it's a little thick there. That's a little more than a 1/4 inch. Here it's more, yeah, it's all a little more than a 1/4 inch, so it's thicker than it should be. You don't want it much thicker than that, or it's just going to feel kind of clunky in your hand. So I might save this just in case I need some of that clay, because anything you attach at this stage as it's stiffening up, you want it to be the same moisture level as the clay that you're attaching it to. If you're putting some wet clay on clay that's already dried out a little bit, it can cause them to shrink at different rates, and you might get some cracking and some other issues. It's okay if they're a little bit different, but just something you want to be aware of and be careful with. So I've re-moistened this and kind of smush this together. And I think that's also nice if I put the handle there. It works with the ergonomics where it curves along with the curvature of my hand a little bit. And I want to really use pressure and mash this together. And use this wooden rib, get a little bit of compression going here, really smush it together. Inside, same thing. You can get a wooden modeling tool that together. Sometimes it's good to add another coil along there. Like, really the best thing to do here is to compress that seam. And then here's where, again, you would take this piece of clay that you've already cut out of the cup, and you know it's the same moisture level. And you can use this piece to roll a coil and then score. Add some more moisture. Score this coil. Add some moisture onto the coil, activate it, and I'll stick that coil along the seam and compress it in there. I don't want it to get too thick, but I want to really erase any kind of structural issues that might come back to haunt me in the drying and the firing process. Things can look okay in the wet stage, leather hard stage, and if your pot is not constructed with good technique, it can really come back to haunt you. So make sure to really erase seams as much as you can, make good connections. So now I'll do a little more cleanup on this cup, and then I'll be ready to attach a handle shortly. And then on the inside, you know, functionally, if it has a lot of texture in there, that's where, you know, schmutz is going to get stuck. You know, that's where it's going to get coffee stains, and so you want it to have a relatively smooth surface. Here I just have a 1/2 inch chip brush that you can get at the hardware store for like $1, and I'm going to just do a little cleanup. I don't want to do too much wiping of the surface, but just enough to get rid of some of the rough parts. You notice here, if I really keep rubbing at it, see how it starts to get sandy? That's because I'm removing the soft material, and then the grog and the more coarse particles get exposed. So that's why you don't want to do too much water. Maybe you realize you need to do a little more detail. It's not good to do detail when your form is really wet. You want it to be kind of leather hard. If it's too wet, it's really easy to mess up your surface. Soft edge. Make sure that edge is real soft. Meanwhile, my cup is wrapped up, so this is going to stay the same moisture level it was, or close to it, when I wrapped it up. Meanwhile, these are drying, so hopefully in the next hour or two, these will meet in the middle. So I made 2 handles. They sat out for about an hour and a half, and they feel pretty good. They maybe got a little stiff on the end, and if that happens, you know, it's natural because it's thinner there. But one trick you can do is just dip it in some water, or just dipped the end of that handle. Dip this one just on the end. Think about, like, here's the section that I want. About like that. I want a happy handle. I got a happy face. I want my handle to be kind of happy as well. And then unwrap my cup here. So my cup is leather hard, and my handle sat out and got leather hard so it could catch up to the cup. The handle's going to go right around there. Maybe I want it at even more of an angle. Real happy handle. Good. Cut off the excess here. Be careful not to cut off too much. Think about, okay, yeah, 2 fingers will fit in there good. So maybe I'll take a little bit more, about like that. And then I'm going to trace where my handle's going to be, and then I'm going to score that. Score this. Fork, needle tool, doesn't matter. Fork is 4 times faster. If it's too low, then the handle's going to sit on the table, sit on the shelf, the kiln shelf. When you glaze it, it's going to stick to the shelf, or you won't be able to glaze it. So you want it up a little higher. If it's up all the way at the top, sometimes it's kind of awkward. You know, maybe you want to put your lips there or something. So towards the top, like a little higher up, but not all the way at the top, and then with a decent amount of space at the bottom there, at least like a finger down there. So that's about where you want it. And I'll add a little bit of pressure from the inside out. And then smooth it on. Feels pretty good right about there. Now I'll smooth it out with a brush. Looks like there's a little bit of space in there, so I could add a little coil in there. And what can happen here is where thick and thin things come together, that's where they want to crack, right? This thin handle coming into this thicker cup, the handle is going to dry faster than the cup. So right where they connect, they may want to crack. So that's why I added a little bit of clay there to help ensure that it stays together well. You can use this brush and really clean it up. There's my face cup. Let that dry out slowly. I'll loosely drape it in plastic, especially around this handle. You want to make sure you have some plastic draped over that to allow that to dry slowly. The slower it dries, the less likely it is to crack.
Once your cup is bone dry, you're going to want to do a little sanding. You can do it outside. Make sure you're wearing a mask. I've got an N95 mask on right now. You can do it over a garbage can or over a bucket, and just try and take off any of those little burrs and rough spots you see on there, especially on the handle. Be super careful with your projects at this stage because they are very brittle. It's really easy to break them. Make sure to clean up the lip, clean up the inside, get down in there very, very carefully. Sand out the inside. Make sure that it sits flat. You can rub it on the concrete, like take it out to the sidewalk, like rub it on the concrete, and that'll make it sit flat. I'm using this Scotch-Brite green scrubby pad to sand. You can use sandpaper. I have some 100 grit. You can use 200 grit. Sand with that, and making sure, like, if it has a little rock to it, you can just rub it on there. Rotate it a little bit, and that should flatten it out. Depending on how much of a wobble it has, you might need to rub it on there more. And make sure you don't scratch out your signature. If you do, be sure to scratch it back on there. You can put your initials or your full name.